Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another week of your Hog Hoops Report with your very own Kevin McPherson. Kevin, we had a lot of recruiting to get into, but we got to jump straight into the guy that had the unofficial visit right here on the hill. The first week of football season, Jace he was here talking to us, and I seen the pictures all over social media. I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but I know you had a lot more information on Jace visiting the University of Arkansas. Let's get into that. Start things off.
Well, Arkansas, June 15th was the first day that Division I coaches could initiate contact with class of 2024 prospects. Arkansas wasted no time not only reaching out just after midnight to Jace Richardson, a 6'4" guard out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. He's a very talented combo guard. But not only did Arkansas reach out on June 15th with a number of other prospects, but he was really about less than a handful of players that actually got an offer on the same day from the Razorbacks. Mm-hmm. And again, we're talking 5 stars. Arkansas, we know, is really doing well, mining the 5-star talent when you look at what 3 that are part of the team now as freshmen in that 22 class. And of course, Layden Blocker, we're going to talk about him, the loan commitment so far in 23. But Jace Richardson's one of the top players. But there's a history there with Arkansas when you start talking about Eric Musselman and Keith Smart, because we know Musselman got his NBA head coaching debut back in the early 2000s at Golden State. In fact, he was the runner-up for NBA Coach of the Year in his first season as a very young coach in the NBA. Yep. But guess who was on that team? Jace Richardson's NBA famous father, Jason Richardson, won a national title at Michigan State in 2000, picked 5th overall by Golden State in 2001, and a couple of years later, he's playing for Eric Musselman with the Warriors. And here's a guy that was a 14-year NBA veteran, 2-time NBA dunk champion. But they started to have the kind of 5-star talent because his dad certainly was when you go back and look at all that stuff I just talked about. So this visit was a little bit different. Now, it was an unofficial visit. It was Friday night. Sent me a photo of him in the airport when he got here, and I tweeted that out. But the next day, it was basketball practice with the Razorbacks in the morning. Eric Musselman scheduled that so that they would have time afterward to get to the stadium and go to Arkansas. But what a game that was, by the way, 31-24 win between 2 ranked teams with Cincinnati, who's been a powerhouse. I don't care, Power 5 or not, powerhouse in college football lately. But so Jace Richardson had a big day on Saturday during his unofficial visit to Arkansas, but his dad, who we just talked about, was with him. And so Jace basically told me afterward, and we got a story out on Hogville and Pig Trail Nation KNWA as a follow-up and some of his thoughts that he shared with me. But he told me, CJ, that he could see himself in this program. He said the style of play, the culture, coaching staff. He loved the game day atmosphere, seeing how the fans are and how locked in they are with the program. But all those things he said, are things that made him, that he loved, and said that he thought he could see himself in the program. Now, it's still early in his recruiting process. He reminded me of that. So he's not sure about how visits will play out in the future, but he said he has a high level of interest in Arkansas. And he said one of the couple of things that I took away from this interview, CJ, was that, first of all, he said the interaction with his dad and Muss and Smart after all these years, and he said his dad had as much fun as he did. He really thought the visit was a cool experience. He said he learned a lot, them telling their old stories from the Warriors days. And he said it was, just kind of his dad making the point where he's seeing things come full circle with his own son now being recruited by some of the coaches that he played for. Yeah. So that's always cool. And he said both of them, he and his dad, were really engaged during Arkansas's practice. I think that's cool myself. But Jay said the thing that really stood out to him about practice was how hard the team played, especially all the work they put in on the defensive side of the ball. Very astute observation, because what do we know about Eric Musselman at Arkansas? The identity of this program and where they have really made their honey is on the defensive end. Everything's kind of been around that. And so to kind of pick up on that and see that that was one of the things that his biggest takeaways from practice I thought was pretty interesting. But here's a guy that's got a lot of high major offers already. Last season at Bishop Gorman, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a couple of steals. He checks a lot of boxes. Now, his dad, I mentioned, 2-time NBA dunk champion, one of the best slashers I ever saw, getting from wing to basket. And his son Jace is not quite as explosive or above the rim, but more crafty and skill guy at the same stage. Just going into his junior season in high school, he really understands how to break down defenders. And even if he doesn't get a lot of separation, he's comfortable finishing over through contact. He gets to spots, a good spot up shooter from what I've seen, and a guy that just does a lot, a good facilitator with that 6'3", 6'4" in length. So you see why already he's a 5-star, but offers from, he could be a legacy at Michigan State, already an offer there, Arizona State, some other high major programs around the country. So Jace Richardson's definitely a prospect to keep an eye on. We know, again, I keep mentioning Arkansas, casting that wide net and not being afraid to go out and chase 5-stars. And this is a situation where they've already got ties. We went through all of it with this player, so we'll see how and if that develops moving forward. But then we go back to Arkansas's loan commitment in 2023. Big news this week. I know you and I just talked about it off air. Who am I talking about? Well, who are we going to talk about next, CJ?
We got to talk about this guy. We've been raving about it for weeks, probably months going on now. You've been talking about it. You've been seeing him in the AAU circuits across the country in high school. You've been following him for a good amount of time now, and I'm sure the fans know what we're talking about. Talking about Layden Blocker, man, who's coming to University
Layden Blocker, class of 2023. He took his official visit to Arkansas in June and committed later that month.
Yep.
But here's a guy that really, to me, when you look at the success he had in the spring and summer on the Nike EYBL circuit, going head-to-head against some of the top players, other guards that were ranked in the top 5 in the country in his class, and really kind of outplaying them. And, the whole time he's been kind of on the fringes of that 5-star with ESPN at number 28. Then he moved up to 26 before ESPN re-upped its rankings on Monday of the past week. So ESPN moved him up to 22, but still that was not enough to get him over the hump to 5-star status. He's the highest rated 4-star. But when you look at the aggregate composite rankings put out by 247 Sports, 247 Sports has its own rankings. Blocker's number 29. Rivals has its own rankings. He's also ranked 29th in the country, 4-star. I just said ESPN moved him up to 22, still a 4-star. But 247 Sports puts out a composite, which is an aggregate of those 3 services, kind of like an average, not exactly that, but close. But because of those move ups and because of the strength of the 3 collectively, he is now a 5-star, the number 25 overall prospect in the country, which has moved him up to a 5-star. I think in those aggregate composite rankings, the top 26 players are 5-stars. So he's number 25. Layden Blocker got that bump of the week. We put a big story out about that, and it's well deserved. This is an explosive player at 6'2", maybe pushing 6'3". His athleticism is unquestionable, but sometimes guys have that and it doesn't necessarily translate. This guy is a headhunter going to the rim with that size and explosiveness, but he's also a facilitator. And if he can't finish with a dunk through or over somebody, he's got a lot of nice finishing craft going left or right, getting the basket. You start to see him add some of his little mid-range work and his improvement shooting from behind the 3 line. And then defensively, he's just a dog, man. He gets into other guards. He gets deflections, just rips the ball out, especially in big, tight moments at the end of games. This guy's always been clutch. So when you put everything together, you understand why Eric Melsman prioritized him. He's off the board. It's a great start. Arkansas's got another 5-star. We talked earlier that they got 3 in that 2022 class, Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh. So this is the 4th 5-star pledge for Arkansas in the past year with Layden Blocker, and it's good to see him get that bump. We talked recently in the last show about he and Anthony Black taking part in that CP3 Elite guard camp last weekend. Anthony Black, one NBA scout, told me he was the top player there out of 24 top 12 college, top 12 high school guards. Wow. But Blocker also showed well there. There's really good feedback. NBADraft.net this week, when it updated its mock draft, has Layden Blocker as the number 20 overall pick in the first round in the 2024 draft, which would mean he would have been a one and done at that point. So a lot of good things swirling right now for Layden Blocker. We're going to have some more news on him in a few days, maybe. Look forward to putting that out and writing about it, and then we'll talk about it next week. But big goings on there. And when we need to now talk about Arkansas's expanded recruiting coming up. We just talked about this unofficial visit We know that Bay Fall and Asani Diop are coming for their official visit September 16th through 18th. That'll be game 3 in the football Hogs hosting Missouri State, and Bobby Petrino coming back to the state.
Yeah.
But that's their weekend for official visit. They were at Rutgers this weekend for an official visit. A planned visit to Texas next weekend, I'm told, and I'm hearing that may be canceled at this point, and they're not going to make that Texas trip. But Bay Fall, the 6'11" big man, very athletic, long forward center, top 15 in the country, and all the services, it works out to top 15 5-star when you do the aggregate. And then Asani Diop, 6'10", very complimentary player. We say it all the time. Top, 57th now on ESPN, so he's right there in that around that top 50 high-level 4-star. But these guys are coming together. They took that unofficial visit for the Arkansas win at home over Kentucky back in February, and had a nice unofficial visit. So this will be an official visit. I say it all the time. I'll continue to say it until I hear something different. I think Arkansas is in the lead for those guys. A couple other tidbits right now in the 2023 class. Ron Holland, the 5-star that visited Arkansas, top 10 5-star. 6'8" forward out of Duncanville, former teammate of Anthony Black in high school, took that OV to Arkansas in June. He's also taken an official visit, had taken to UCLA and Kentucky. This past weekend, it was Texas. And so that wraps up his OVs to his top 4 schools. Also looking at NBA G League Elite, Ignite. And then let's talk a little bit about Wesley Yates III. He had originally planned to visit at the same time as Holland at Texas this weekend. His dad told me that changed, and they moved it out to September 16, 18 for that Texas visit. He'll be at LSU next weekend, the 9th through 11th. But he's still looking to come visit Arkansas. Wesley Yates III, 6'4" guard, shooting guard out of Beaumont, Texas. Still looking at possibly an October date. Also looking to visit Gonzaga in October. Not sure if that's ever going to quite work out. We'll see. But the fact that they continue to want to visit Arkansas and express that to me means it's on the table. And so, we'll see if that gets worked in. But you start to now kind of see the evolution of some of these visits. We've talked about it, but now these dates are coming up really fast, especially with Fall and Diop. And so this is something we're going to continue to talk about. And then one other thing in recruiting with this coaching staff, September 9th is the beginning of the next NCAA recruiting period where coaches can leave campus and go out and see recruits. And so Arkansas is going to fan out. They will across the country. There'll be some in-home visits. There'll be some evaluation when they go to high school practices. They'll meet with players at their school. So there'll be opportunities for Arkansas to get back on the road very soon. And you've got so many players in Central Arkansas and around the state that Arkansas is after. Keon Boateng, class of 2024, national number 36, according to 247 Sports, high-level 4-star at Little Rock Central, 6'5" wing, plays with the 16 under Arkansas Hawks. He took 2 unofficial visits to Arkansas in a span of 5 weeks, just, back in the summer. And Arkansas is going to come out to see him at Little Rock Central practice. They've been there many times before, both for practice and games. They're coming back. When you start looking around the area, Dallas, Slim Thomas, ranked top 30 according to 27 Sports, 6'8" wing out of that 2024 class, plays at Little Rock Parkview for former Arkansas great Scotty Thurman. But here's another guy that's so highly rated. Arkansas is going to go see him practice. You've got Terrion Burgess, who this past week I reported out of the class of 2025, first 2025 player to pick up an Arkansas offer, 6'8" wing, played last season at Marion as a freshman. He is transferred to Benton, so he's in Central Arkansas. Hawk coaches will be out in that first week after that period opens up for the recruiting period. They'll be out to see him in Benton in practice. When I look at Little Rock Christian Academy, Layden Blocker's old stomping grounds, his younger brother, class of 2024, Landry Blocker, he's had Arkansas interest, has a handful of high major offers. But Arkansas, explosive. You talk about explosive. Both the Blocker brothers, nobody dunks on people like they do. Nobody. And so Arkansas coaches will be out to see him at Little Rock Christian. And we want to talk about class of 2026, Jason J.J. Andrews, 6'3", pushing 6'4", long, athletic, savvy player, already going to be a freshman at Little Rock Christian. Loaded backcourt there, big backcourt too. But Arkansas has shown interest in him, and they'll be able to see him at those practices at Little Rock Christian when they come and see Landry Blocker. So you got a lot of names. I just put several of them out, at least 5 in Central Arkansas. Yep. And a lot of these recruits' names I mentioned 2023, and some of the other ones in 24, Arkansas is not going to just focus on Central Arkansas. They're going to fan out and go, like I said, in homes, practice, meeting at schools. And this is how you recruit, CJ. You cast the wide net, you keep your energy up. It's all positive. You don't blink with Eric Musselman because the news cycle never ends.
That's what you want to see. Fireworks going off first week of football season, but they're also going off as basketball is getting ready to gear up. Like I said, Layden Blocker going to 4 to a 5-star is one of the biggest stories on our Pink Trail Nation page. And also, quick question. You did say Jace Richardson, the guy from Golden State Warriors, the legendary dunker. He's one of my favorite dunkers of all time.
Yeah, I mean, 2-time NBA dunk champion.
Yeah.
And, he was a really good player. I think he played for 5 or 6 teams, started out at Golden State, like I mentioned. But a guy that when you watch the evolution of his game in the NBA, you see why he played for 14 years. He wasn't just a one-trick pony. He was a guy that became a good defender, added more parts to his game as he stretched the floor and added three-point shooting, some other things. But whenever you see a guy that plays as long as he did, very valuable at that level because there's so much competition. There's only so many roster spots around the league and a lot of really good players. If we only, probably someone needs to really talk about how many great players that are worthy of playing at that level that for whatever reason it doesn't happen. So, it's a special culture and anyone that sticks around that long has a lot that they can share and hand down to anyone that wants to be the best they can in basketball. So Jace Richardson was kind of born on third base in that regard because he's got a dad who was one of the best to do it. Yeah. And, of course, the dunks, man. That guy he was one of the best. When you start talking about great dunkers, there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
But then there are some that are in the elite category. He was one of them.
I think he was just honored in one of these past slam dunk contests, right? Somebody just honored
What's that?
I think somebody just honored Jace Richardson in one of these past slam dunk contests like this year or a year or two ago. Somebody put his jersey on and did the same thing he did a couple years ago.
Right. And you see that. You see the respect from the younger dunkers, younger generation, honoring what came before them and who came before them. Mm-hmm. And so you're at a certain level when you're one of the guys in that event that's being honored. Because you want to bring back retro. If it wasn't special, it's not worth doing. And that guy was special above the rim. No doubt about it.
That's true. And real quick, we got basketball practice coming up, about to change things up a little bit. The full practice. Talk about the Razorbacks getting into full practice and ramping this thing up just a little bit as the season approaches.
Well, they're still in limited practices. They've been back since they got back from Europe. That'll later this month it'll expand and they'll go back to full practices at some point in the next few weeks. But what I really thought Arkansas would do would get back to the basics and some of the fundamentals, not because they necessarily didn't perform well overseas, going 4-0, winning by double-digit average, doing some of the things they did. You could see the blueprint for what this team is going to be good at. But we know that Eric Musselman's going to parse out and tease out the things that he's not happy with. So I really think, and just hearing Jace Richardson tell me that the defensive part of the emphasis on that, those are the kind of things I expect. Arkansas was much better defensively in those last 2 games overseas, partly because Musselman kind of shrunk down the rotation. He was still letting everybody play to some degree, but some guys' minutes went down and other guys' minutes went up. You kind of saw that top 8 at that point. Don't know if it's going to look exactly like that, but it might when the season starts. Yeah. But you saw him get better defensively. So I think, just knowing how much attention to detail he has in all facets, but especially on defense, communication, guys understanding assignments, timing on assignments, staying connected. We saw some video come out from practice, everybody kind of tethered with, I'm not going to call them leashes, but they had those stretch bands and some of the points that you make, sometimes you literally connect players to make a point. And I thought that was really neat. And it speaks a lot to some of his philosophies and how he implements things even into practice. Because even though it's limited, I say this all the time, 4 hours per week, kind of chop that up if you wanted to, 1 hour per day, 4 days a week, or however he gets it done week to week. But he gets a lot done in every practice. They don't waste a lot. There's no wasted time. Everybody's constantly moving and engaged. And that's how you get better. If you're not moving, you're not getting better. That's a philosophy. I think Musselman, he was always talking about energy, enthusiasm, and effort. So he walks the talk, right? Or he does. And so when it starts from the top, it trickles all the way down. And so I think he maximizes limited practices so that they can drill down on stuff. So they're not as worried about going live and full contact scrimmaging as they are getting things right. And so that's what I think the biggest value for Arkansas is compared to other programs this time of year, is that maybe Arkansas gets more done. Now, I don't want to say I know that for a fact because I'm not at other programs' practices, and I've only been to Arkansas practice a couple of times this summer, and that was extra, right? Because they got 10 full in. But think about that. Musselman got 10 full practices in, 4 games against other competition, some against some quality, that last game of the pro organization, veteran guys, some talent in there. But he's got even more an advantage now, in my opinion, because of that. Of course, when you look at this loaded roster, I mean, it always comes down to players too. So, but I think that, when I start checking off the boxes, advantage, I still remind myself there are 11 newcomers. So you got to factor that in too, CJ. And that's why practice time and making the most of it is so important for a team that is really effectively, unprecedentedly, it's basically making over the whole roster. And I think we don't ever want to lose sight, as we talk about the talent. Don't ever want to lose sight of what guys like Devo Davis and Kamani Johnson bring to the table. Because I think both of those guys are going to put a stamp on Arkansas's season, and I think it's going to be a successful season. And I still maintain they've got the blueprint, they've got the makings and the pieces and the parts for a Final Four team. With so many unknowns to come, to see how that might or can or will work out. But just looking at it, they've got it.
They've got it, and I'm looking forward to a basketball season coming at you fast. Kevin, I appreciate you stopping by, man, each and every week.
CJ, thank you. Always good to be with you. Look forward to next week. Let's do it now.
We'll see you guys next week with another week of your Hog Hoops Report.